Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking about episode 3 of season 1 of Game of Thrones. Valar, you know what, I'm I'm not going to try pronouncing that. Anyway, um so it's been way too long, but Game of Thrones is back. It's just as cool as ever. The only real problem with this episode is that this is the first episode of the season, and sort of necessity demands that it really be spent just sort of touching on all the characters, getting us back up to speed on where they were, refreshing our memories, all of that. So while the plot does inch forward just a little bit, there's really not a whole lot of crunch to this episode. But there's still some interesting things to talk about, so let's just get right into it. Okay, now first of all, we get interesting stuff going on right there in the opening credits. I mean, was that Winterfell has been shown as being ruined and burned. I love little details like that. It's so cool. We also get our first glimpse at one of the giants. Now the giants don't really appear until. Okay, I guess I should take a moment to do as I usually do in my Game of Thrones reviews and remind everybody that I've read all the books, but it's been almost 2 years since I've read any of the books. In fact, I actually gave away my books to a friend of mine as a wedding gift, so I don't have my copies anymore. So if I forget some details or just get some things wrong, little details, do try and bear with me. Also, of course, it's been just as long as it has been as long for me as it has for everybody else since I saw season 2. I haven't watched any reruns or anything, so if I slip up there, I'm just as human as everybody else. Cut a guy some slack, okay? But anyway, I will by necessity want to talk about some things from the book, but I won't spoil anything major. All right, little details I feel it's reasonable to talk about, but any of the big stuff that is in the books or that I know is coming down the line on the show, just out of necessity, I won't spoil that for you. So anyway, getting back to the giants. Now the giants don't really show up until A Dance with Dragons, and we only really get one giant who's ever really a character. But here we really get to see our first glimpse of them, and I have to say there is just some absolutely spectacular CGI going on there. I mean, they are rendered wonderfully. I mean, summer blockbuster movie quality there. I mean, that's right on par with some of the CGI I saw in The Hobbit. I'm willing to say that, go that far. And that was Weta guys, and those guys are the best. So anyway, we also get to meet up with the king beyond the wall, Mance. He has his interesting moment with Jon Snow, and we see that it's pretty obvious that Ygritte is into Jon, and I did really like their interactions in the book. The Jon getting to see the wildlings side of life. It ultimately is the start of some very interesting stuff for Jon's character, and of course Mance, as we all know, as those of us who've read the book know, understand that Mance is a very big player in what's going on, and yeah, I'm very interested to see what the show's going to do with him. Okay, now of course we have to talk about pretty much everybody's favorite character, and that's Tyrion. Now the big thing is with him here, now he has just this rather nasty scar on his face, whereas in the books he basically, like, his nose was cut off and he was just horribly messed up. One thing I loved about the books is the scene where Tyrion is recovering from that wound. He's got bandages on his face, and he basically says, take these bandages off and give me a mirror so that I can see what I look like. And it so hilariously reads like the scene with the Joker in the 1989 Batman movie with Jack Nicholson. I mean, I swear George R. R. Martin had to have been going for that. Here, of course, we don't get that, but we do get a nice scene between him and Cersei. Them showing that there's still some pretty serious animosity going on. of course, Cersei's worried about what he's going to tell their dad, and she's got pretty good reason to be worried because, well, just look at all the dumbass stuff that she and Joffrey have been doing before he showed up and saved their butts. Now, of course, Tyrion isn't really interested in that. He does lay out a perfectly reasonable case as to why he should be made ruler of Casterly Rock. And what's awesome about the scene between him and Tyrion is this is really just basically word for word from the book. So, a little change here and there as best I can tell, but seriously, this is pure stuff right from the books. And it's just right here that it's just like, God, Tyrion is just such an utter bastard. And again, this is one of those things that does so much to really keep Tyrion a sympathetic character. Now, just like everybody else, I love Tyrion, but again, you can't deny he's been a real dick sometimes, and if you've read the books, Tyrion goes out and he does some really evil stuff sometimes. I mean, he's still probably a net positive force in the universe, but don't think that for a moment that Tyrion doesn't have that Lannister nasty streak in him, because man, oh man, he does. Tyrion is not a guy to be crossed lightly. Let's leave it at that. Speaking of guys not to be crossed lightly, we get some more of just Bronn being absolutely awesome. That conversation with him and Tyrion about how they're friends. That's great stuff. Again, right from the books, and one of the reasons why Bronn is such a great supporting character. I really do enjoy him. Okay, so we also get to check in with old Davos. Poor guy. Again, Davos is one of the case examples, now that poor old Ned is dead, that in Westeros and the world of Game of Thrones, genuinely good people just constantly suffer. He's stranded on that island for God knows how long. He's about half, horribly beaten down by the elements. He goes to see his king, the one guy in the world who, who's thought of, now that his sons are dead, has really kept him going. Of course, circumstances force Stannis to really just, even though he's certainly happy that Davos is alive, he can't really acknowledge this too openly because of, political and religious reasons. And of course, in no time flat, Melisandre has goaded Davos into attacking her, and he's thrown in the dungeons. I mean, man, Davos just cannot win. But, well, we won't count the old Onion Knight down just yet, will we? Delicious water. Not really a whole lot to say about what's going on with Robb. He's still mad at his mom, and of course he has good reason to be. Really nice scene with Ros and Shay. This was a little unexpected for me, but I really liked it. Especially enjoyed Roz's little speech to Shay about how they've both really come up so far in the world. And, her passing along that warning to watch out for Sansa around Littlefinger. And what's really interesting about Ros is, let's not forget, Ros might be Littlefinger's right-hand woman, but don't forget who she's acting as a spy for. And also let's not forget, Ros is a character created for the TV series. She is not from the books. So they can really go anywhere they want with her. Now granted, she's probably never going to get top billing in the credits, but I kind of like that there's a little character who's a little bit of a wild card like that. I think it helps keep things interesting. And of course we get to see the big thing that people have been wanting and just have not freaking shut up about since this show is started. It's, yes, we get to see a good glimpse of the dragons. And one thing I did like is we see the dragon swoop down, scoop up a fish, shoot fire at it, and then eat it. Of course, one of the big things, of course, in the series is her trying to figure out that what dragons eat, and it takes Dany, of course, forever to figure out that dragons will only eat meat that is cooked. So again, a nice little attention to detail there. Now, one thing that was really interesting to me in this episode was our scenes with Joffrey, and we get to see Obviously, Joffrey's still pretty darn scared of the random mobs in King's Landing, and of course, considering they about tore him apart, his fear is very justified, especially seeing as how he basically probably is not exactly burning up the popularity polls. I mean, those soldiers who survived the Battle of Blackwater probably went out there and was like, yeah, the king's a freaking wimp. Now, him seeing Marjorie going out there and doing all that charity work, hanging out with orphans, being kind, I wasn't really sure exactly how Joffrey was going to react to this once they got off somewhere into private. What's interesting is, though, that in general, Joffrey seems to approve of this. Now, granted, part of this is obviously political. If the people like Marjorie, then he sort of looks good by reflection, almost like popularity by osmosis in a way. But honestly, it seems like Joffrey honestly doesn't seem to have any real problem with what she's doing. And this is a guy who ordered the death of of babies and innocent people. Now, I'm not saying that this is some sort of morally redeeming aspect of Joffrey's character. Joffrey has virtually nothing going on in terms of morally redeeming aspects. But he's at least savvy enough to basically go along with something that benefits him, and at worst be indifferent to something that isn't any sort of a threat to him. And of course, it's certainly fun to see Joffrey taking some digs at Cersei because, well, Cersei's a horrible person who deserves to suffer. Not really a whole lot to say about what's going on with Sansa. I forgot to mention her. Just her interactions with Littlefinger. That's nothing. That's stuff that's going to bear fruit later on, but really not a whole lot to say about it right now. Let me see here. Oh yeah, we have to go back and talk about Dany some more. I almost forgot. I do like that Dany does raise the big moral question of how am I any better than any of these other people that would buy the Unsullied if I do this? And Jorah does make some fairly reasonable points. And this is something she really did struggle with in the books, because Dany obviously is not that huge a fan of slavery. I mean, servant girls and all that other fun stuff. Yeah, Dany's definitely down with that. Yeah, if you've read the books, there's a little bit more to say about that, but I'm going to leave that one for as a surprise for folks who are reading the novels. We also get to see that apparently the Warlocks are not finished with Dany. I'm not really sure how I feel about this. The whole thing with the Warlocks, I kind of thought they sorted that out pretty well last season. As I said, I kind of compared that whole thing where she went to the tower to get her dragons back to be basically feeling like it was a Dungeons and Dragons game. Now, granted, the Warlocks do have their own role, a reasonable role in the books, but frankly, I kind of think it might have been better just to sort of let that thing last season be the end of it. But still, I'm okay with this being. I'm okay. I'm okay with them toying around with the idea a little more, but I don't really think it should be too open-ended. I think this should probably needs to firmly be resolved because Dany's got other stuff on her plate. Although the way they did handle the assassin kid and the crazy scorpion thing, the Manticore, that was all really nicely done. And of course, it allows us to bring Barristan into the picture. And it has been a long time since we have seen this fella. Now, this the way he's introduced here is obviously very different than how it was in the books. Here, they really basically kind of cut to the chase with him. In the books, long story short, it's a much more drawn out affair as to what's going on with him. But yeah, things are really coming together on Dany's side of things, and this is what's going on with Dany right now. Really heading into some very big divergences with what happens in the book, from what I've seen. Now, I don't know anything about the other big changes that are going to be happening in the further on down this season, but yeah, just the fact that Dany's really out there getting stuff done much more than well, let's just say she's moving along quite a bit faster clip than she did in the books, and I'm perfectly okay with that because I'm one of those people who in the books it's like, okay, Danny, get off your butt. You really kind of need to get in there with everybody else. Really start mixing it up. But anyway, that's really all I have to say for you guys this time around. As I said, this episode's mostly plot, not the greatest amount of stuff to chew on character-wise, but now that the stage has been set, the fun stuff can really begin next episode, and I'm totally down for that. Anyway, as always, you can please comment, rate, and subscribe, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.